Okay, now Joshua leads them into the promised land. In the promised land, there were the Canaanites. And Joshua probably used a big sickle sword, something like that. And this is what the Canaanites look like. Of course, those are probably the rich rulers there. And they worshiped Baal, the storm god, who they thought controlled the lightning and the thunder. In 1928, a farmer was plowing and he hit something, and they came and discovered the ancient city of Ugarit. They found a number of clay tablets there, and most of the religious tablets have been translated in this book here that tell stories about Baal. And many of these were written in Ugaritic, and this is their alphabet. So the two little wedge shapes here is the letter A, and then you have the letter B, and then the letter G. It's very similar to Hebrew, and here we have the alphabet here. So Hebrew scholars will study Ugaritic. If you don't know a word in Hebrew, you might see how it's used in Ugaritic. Then this is how they counted. One wedge shaped is 1, two wedge shapes is 2, and then you got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10 is a little triangle going the other way. Then you have the 10 plus the 1 equals 11, 10 plus the 2 equals 12, and so forth. Here we have a land grant from the king, but to make it official, the king takes his seal, rolls it out on the soft clay, stamps his seal on it, and now it's official from the king of Ugarit. Here's another one where the Hittites, they stamped their seal right in the middle of the tablet. At one time they thought the Hittites were just a made-up nation until they found the ancient city of Hattusa. And you see the city gate down there, what they think it looked like. In 1906 they discovered about 10,000 clay tablets there, so now we know a lot more about the Hittites. And here you can see one of the Hittite kings right there. And one of the most famous right here is the peace treaty between Ramses II and the Hittite king. Then we want to move on to the Philistines. Here's what the Philistines look like. They had big feathered headdresses, something like Indians. In 1177 BC, they tried to take over Egypt with other sea people, but Ramses III won the battle, has them all tied up, forced to settle in Canaan, and caused the Israelites trouble. And they worship Dagon, who they saw as half fish, half man god. And then Samson fights the Philistines with a jawbone of a donkey. This is a real one here. Still has its teeth. Then Samson tells Delilah, if you weave my hair in a loom, I'll become weak. But then he just breaks out of it. Then finally, at the end of his life, he pulls the pillars of the temple down, and it all collapses, killing everyone. We want to turn over here. This is also time of the judges. You have Abimelech who wants to be king. The people flee into the temple tower there at Shechem. He orders his men to burn it down, killing 1,000 people inside. And this is all that's left of the temple tower there at Shechem today. Then at Jericho, I think Eglon's palace looked like. Ehud goes in and stabs Eglon in the belly, and it covers the whole dagger, and he dies. And they think that he got out through the toilet system and escaped. Then we have the Merneptah stela. This is a small model. It's actually over 10 feet tall in the Cairo Museum. But right at the bottom it says Israel. There's a better look at Israel spelled out in Egyptian hieroglyphics. you read into the faces of the people or animals, because they might write backwards, forwards, up and down. Then at Tel El Marna in Egypt, they found 382 clay tablets like this. This is a letter from Jerusalem complaining about the Habaru. And some think the word Hebrew comes from Habaru and that they were complaining about the Hebrews. And some think this is the oldest mention of God, Yahweh. It says, look at this one here. It says, the statue of Yahweh's land. And here we have at Karnak what some of the statue look like. Then we want to go to Kiafa. They excavated there and they found this broken piece of pottery. It's some of the earliest Hebrew writing. It looks nothing like Hebrew today. They call it Paleo-Hebrew. And here you can see an A or Aleph in Hebrew. And here you can see some other ones. This is the Gezer calendar. Some other ancient Paleo-Hebrew writing. And they found this right here, the head, some people think of a god or idol. Then Elat Mazer, she excavated in the city of David, and she thinks this may be part of David's palace there. In 1993 at Tel Dan, they found this inscription right here that says David. House of David. This was a sensational find to find David's name, because people thought, oh, he's just making it up. That's just a made-up name. Till they found this written right here. So this is a DVD, David. And the original's in the Israel Museum in Jerusalem. And David would have had a sling, either knitted something like this, or out of leather. And the sling stones are not tiny little pebbles. They're more like baseball, tennis ball sized stones that David would be slinging and hit Goliath. Now after David, Solomon becomes king. And some claim this is Solomon on his throne with his Egyptian queen. Others say, no, these are the Israelites over here, and they debate about it. Just about anything they find, they debate about it. And Solomon, most famous for building the temple at Jerusalem. Then down here, we have a cutaway of what we think it looked like inside Solomon's temple. Notice there's 12 menorah or candlesticks, and the tabernacle had only one. Now after Solomon, the kingdom splits in two. You have Israel in the north, Judah in the south, about 925 BC. Shishak the first comes up from Egypt, takes all of the treasures out of Solomon's temple back down to Tanis in Egypt. Tanis was the capital of Egypt at the time. And this is where you get the Indiana Jones movie where he goes to Tanis and he finds the Ark of the Covenant, but we don't know for sure that it was taken there. And this is Shishak's little scarab seal. He's called Shishak in the Bible, the first pharaoh mentioned by name in the Bible. Then down here we have jar handles, and they would stamp seals on the jar handles, telling what city they're from, probably for tithes, offerings, taxes around the time of Hezekiah. And they're called the El-Milek seals, which means belonging to the king. Then they found this seal. It says belonging to Isaiah the prophet. A sensational find to find Isaiah's seal impression That's blown up big. This is the actual size of it, so it's very, very small. Then, not too far away, I found Hezekiah's seal. Notice the winged scarab beetle. Here is the lion seal, time of Jeroboam the second, king of Israel. Then there's Jezebel's seal. And her husband was Ahab, king of Israel. And I think this may be Ahab. We don't know for sure, but he has a crown on his head. And it's found right around the time of Ahab. And they didn't find the rest of him, so they just found his head. And that's in the Israel Museum. Now, Ahab is killed, and we want to slide back over here. Mesha, king of Moab, rebels against Israel and gains his freedom, and he makes this big monument and celebration. He mentions Israel several times, and the God of Israel right here, which says Yahweh. And then something David down here where it's broken. A missionary found this in Debong, Jordan. Local villagers, the story goes, thought there was treasure inside, so they heated the stone up in the fire, poured cold water in it, cracked it all into pieces, trying to find treasure. There was no treasure. The treasure is what's written on here. And the original is in the Louvre in Paris today. This is full size. Now, Egypt was the main power here, but now the Assyrians rise to power. And here's a small model of the black obelisk of Shalmaneser III. It has 4 sides. I stretched out the 4 sides here so you can see it all at once. And this is full size. And here we have Jehu, king of Israel, bowing down before Shalmaneser III, king of Assyria. We have Israelites here and more Israelites over here, bringing tribute, gold, silver, and other things to the king of Assyria. But it gives you an idea what the Israelites look like and what they wore. And it's just this top row. This next row is all from Egypt. And the original is in London in the British Museum. Then down here we have Shalmaneser III again. And on here he tells about the Battle of Karkar, where he mentions Ahab having 2,000 chariots. Ahab had more chariots than any of the other kings, so he must have been very powerful back then. Then we have another tablet here. The scribes would mark down each year, and one year they marked down a solar eclipse. And because of that solar eclipse, they can date this to 763 BC, and now we can get some accurate dates for the kings of the Bible because of that. And here you can see the solar eclipse goes right near Nineveh. Down here we have Sargon II. In 722 BC, he destroys Samaria, takes many Israelites captive back to the Assyrian lands, which is mainly modern-day Iraq, and they never return, and that's known as the 10 Lost Tribes of Israel. Then Sennacherib becomes king, and this is his prism here. It's called the Taylor Prism. And on there he tells how he brings the Assyrian army. They surround Jerusalem, and he boasts that he has Hezekiah penned up like a bird in a cage in Jerusalem. However, we have Hezekiah's tunnel inscription telling how he dug a tunnel from the Gihon spring into Jerusalem so that they had plenty of water and God delivered them. And that's in 2 Kings chapter 18. Then the last famous king way at the bottom is Ashurbanipal II here. They discovered his library at Nineveh. Nineveh was the capital of Assyria at the time. They found over 30,000 clay tablets there at Nineveh. And here's one of them. It's actually a dictionary. And the famous Epic of Gilgamesh, or Gilgamesh, was found there as well. Now here's what they think the city gate of Nineveh would have looked like. It's all in ruins. Sennacherib's palace, what they think it may have looked like, they dug it all up. In this one room, they found this huge mural of the Battle of Lachish. It takes up a whole room in the British Museum. Lachish was the second most important city next to Jerusalem, guarding the south. And here you have the Jews up here. They're fighting the Assyrians. The Assyrians win the battle, and the Jews are led away into captivity. And Lachish is all in ruins today. And some think that the Hanging Gardens of Babylon were actually at Nineveh. Then on the floor here we have some whale bones to remind us about Jonah. Jonah was told to go to Nineveh and preach. He didn't want to go, but the big fish persuaded him. And Nineveh is in modern-day Iraq, right near the modern city of Mosul. Jonah's tomb was there, but it was destroyed by ISIS a few years back, and there was a lot of fighting there. And then we have Nahum's tomb, who prophesied the destruction of Nineveh. And right over here we have Joppa, and right here the beach there is where they think Jonah washed up ashore near Tel Aviv. Nahum prophesied the destruction of Nineveh, and sure enough, the Babylonians rise to power, and with the help of other nations destroy Nineveh in 612 BC, and now Babylon is the main power. On this little tablet here, it tells about Nebuchadnezzar bringing the Babylonian army and capturing Jerusalem. Daniel is taken captive, Ezekiel, many other Jews are taken captive back to Babylon, where they be paraded through the famous Ishtar Gate. Here you see one of the animals there, and here's a better look at it. It's a mixed up animal. It has a snake's head and neck, lion paws in the front, eagle claws in the back, and a scorpion tail. He was the I guess you'd call it something like the mascot of Marduk, the king, the god of Babylon. Now, the Germans excavated Babylon, and they took the Ishtar Gate all apart, brought it back to Babylon, back to Berlin, and reassembled it, and you can see the full Ishtar Gate restored there at the Pergamum Museum in Berlin. Then the Persians rise to power. Cyrus the Great conquers Babylon in 539 BC. And then he issues a decree in 538. And this is called the Cyrus Cylinder. And the decree on here allows the Jews to return back to back to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple. So you have Zerubbabel leading the first group back, and they rebuild the temple. Later on, Ezra comes with a group back to Jerusalem. Then you have Nehemiah coming to Jerusalem, building the walls around Jerusalem. It's also a time of Queen Esther, where she had big banqueting feasts with the king, where they'd have golden drinking cups like this. Also silver drinking cups, or pouring cups. And they're called rhytons. And they would have animals as decorations on them. Then you have the famous Immortals, fighting unit of the Persians. And then right here, we have the Behishtum inscription. It's called the Rosetta Stone of Cuneiform. On it, it was written in 3 different languages. You had Elamite, Babylonian, and Old Persian. They knew some of the Old Persians, and they were able to figure it out, and now they can translate these different tablets because of that Behishtum inscription.